Right, so whilst I'm still currently serving Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, Rachel from Accounts as she's been largely nicknamed now in much media, gets the kiss of death from Keir Starmer, him publicly saying that she still has his confidence, which given his relationship with honesty doesn't say a great deal, and which has prompted some of the mainstream media as a result to pop out to the shops to buy a lettuce again. But this isn't the grave error committed by Starmer that is implied in the video title. And in fact, the actual mistake he's committed is not one, but two. You see, whilst he's overtly saying he still has confidence in a woman who was not an economist, but was actually a complaints manager when she worked for Lloyds Bank, he's made a new appointment to the Treasury to basically make sure she doesn't do anything even more stupid than her budget was going forwards. Putting his Chancellor's back up, as this would, I imagine, do, is one mistake. But the second mistake is that the person he's recruited was a former Treasury official who worked for the Tories, which optics-wise invites more accusations of there being no difference between the two parties. But reinforcing that is the fact that the guy he's brought in is literally the brother of a serving Labour MP. So if you were already firmly of the opinion there is no difference between Starmer's Labour and the Tories, well, now you can point to something that actually proves it. Right, so here's a fine mess Keir Starmer has made for himself, isn't it? Basically, recruiting a handler for Rachel from Accounts, from amongst former Tory Treasury staff, no less. Though this, in and of itself, I don't suppose would bother Rachel Reeves too much. She is married to a former Tory DWP official, in case you hadn't pinned down already why she seems so intent on attacking the poor and the disabled. It's hard to imagine her husband's work wasn't an influence there somewhere. So the arrival of another Tory returning to the Treasury, in and of itself, I don't think, would bother her too much. Much more, this is something that'll bother voters, though. But the move does undermine her authority at a time when her reputation is already at rock bottom. It's only taken her 6 months to get there. And that, I doubt she will welcome very much. Her credibility has fallen apart since her budget has caused such widespread damage economically, from the job losses as a result of her national insurance hikes on employers, to sending the interest rate of government bonds to the highest they've been since 1998, making it far more expensive for the government to borrow, and her spending overhead, her buffer to avoid breaking her stupid, arbitrary, self-imposed fiscal rules, has, as a result of that, been whittled away when all things are considered, and calculated to virtually nothing. Now she's choosing to take £3 billion from the disabled to save her bacon, on top of the cut to the winter fuel payment for pensioners, and apparently these are the more palatable choices then for Starmer and Reeves, instead of, for example, not giving Ukraine £3 billion a year. As much as many might support that, clearly we cannot afford it, so therefore it's got to be the wrong choice for the country, hasn't it? Tack onto that the fact Reeves ran away from all of this to China, as she did in the last week, on the basis of gaining some much needed investment here. That was the excuse, and her only coming back with a paltry £600 million worth of new business. And it really does round out a cycle of failure ever since she took over control of the public purse. Therefore, Starmer has brought in somebody else to rein her in, it seems. A former Tory Treasury official by the name of Olaf Hencricson-bell. There's a household name. A spokesperson for the department, as he was once upon a time for the Tories. He was one of those press figures regularly trotted out to face the cameras and was paid to pretty much just defend the indefensible on a daily basis, as he did for former Tory chancellors like Philip Hammond, Sajid Javid, and indeed Rishi Sunak too. And perhaps in that regard, that is exactly what he'll end up doing for Rachel from Accounts, perhaps, given she's shown no ability to defend her own actions to camera herself, sending junior Treasury ministers out to answer questions in Parliament, and of course running away to China when even that wasn't putting enough distance between her and the heat. Hencricson-bell is a career civil servant, and has now been brought in as head of Number 10's policy unit, which is essentially a catch-all body of policymakers who report directly to the Prime Minister. By putting Hencricson-bell into the Treasury, therefore, Starmer has someone reporting on Reeves directly to him, in which case. And with having to be dragged out of Starmer's spokesperson that Reeves would still be Chancellor at the next election, Starmer clearly does not have confidence in her, despite everything that is being said publicly. Cue all those journalists nipping to the shop to buy a lettuce. It also doesn't help that figures within the Labour government, from Pat McFadden to Yvette Cooper to Wes Streeting, are being talked of as possible replacements for Reeves. And with Keir Starmer's relationship with the truth being as loose as it is, who's daft enough to take his word on Reeves still being Chancellor by 2029? All in all, it just undermines Reeves's authority again, places a rift actually between herself and Starmer is so ruthless and authoritarian he'll drop her without a second thought. It does make me laugh in one respect though, because I'm not sure exactly how much Olaf Henriksen-bell is going to have to dumb economics down to a level Starmer will actually understand it. Throughout the general election campaign, he relied on Reeves to answer questions on the economy, on Labour's plans for it. And now they've been shown to be a complete disaster. Well, that is what you get for copying George Osborne's homework, which is largely all Rachel Reeves has ever done. And Starmer is bringing someone else in to now oversee Reeves's work as she now opts for more austerity. So still copying George Osborne then. All of this will apparently be an exercise in kicking Reeves when she's already down. She's apparently already very depressed that things haven't worked out quite how she thought they would. She had it all planned out. How did it go so wrong for her? Well, it didn't work out for George Osborne, did it? We didn't refer to him as Gideot for nothing, so why would doing the same stuff all over again, yet more austerity, work out better for you? Another omnishambles, isn't it? Oh, but she said she knew how the economy worked, didn't she? She was so confident, wasn't she? Perhaps her background in running IT in a complaints department will enable her to turn the economy around. Or at the very least, you'd think she'd have learned to cope with people being unhappy with her by now, wouldn't you? But bashing Rachel from accounts aside, the appointment of Olaf Henriksen-bell is no less a problem in the making for Keir Starmer. Already he's been accused of being Tory-light, of being a red Tory, of standing under a slogan for change and delivering nothing different whatsoever from 14 years of the blue Tories. More cuts, more austerity, we're all feeling worse off, our services are crumbling, and the appointment to a key role within the Treasury to undermine Reeves, having served under 3 other Tory Chancellors and none of them being George Osborne, well, it could possibly set Reeves on a slightly different course, but a no less Tory one. And all of this taken together just begs for more accusations to be levied at Starmer that he's not Labour and he really is just another lousy, craven Tory. But if you dig a bit deeper than that, this accusation actually has even more legs on it, because where Olaf Henriksen-bell is an out-and-out Tory, at least going by his career record, his brother, his twin brother no less, was a new intake Labour MP entering Parliament just this year. You see, Olaf Henriksen-bell is a twin brother of the former director of the Resolution Foundation think tank and former advisor to Ed Miliband, Torsten Bell, or Torsten Henriksen-bell to give him his full correct name, now the Labour MP for Swansea West. Torsten Bell was one of those Starmer impositions, taking advantage of the anyone but the Tories atmosphere in politics to impose people in certain constituencies that were his sort, red Tory sort. And despite one brother working for the Tories and the other with a background with Labour, the optics are horrendous, and really do give an impression of there being nothing between the Tories or Labour. Bell was essentially handed a safe Labour seat, despite being a private school educated and London born, without any connection to Wales, let alone Swansea whatsoever. It's a classic example of where Starmer said local parties could select their candidates. He yet again lied with impunity, and Bell was one such imposition. Despite being a brand new intake MP, he walked straight into the post of PPS to the Cabinet Office, implying this was one of those posts where it was a job for one of Starmer's London-centric mates, and there's little here to point to that says otherwise. Starmer's Labour are a bunch of Tories. They recruit them, and they've already made people of that kind of thinking MPs, or rather for the sake of becoming an MP, they've sacrificed stuff they previously believed in. For example, Torsten Bell wrote an article back in 2019 backing a wealth tax, the route Rachel from accounts should be taking, but vociferously is avoiding. But then he defended her not doing that in an article from last year. The very worst MPs are the ones who want to be one and don't actually stand for anything, lacks conviction completely. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer's world has also come crashing down elsewhere as he becomes mired in a grooming scandal. The news of the arrest of former Labour MP and Jewish Labour movement chair, as well as Starmer supporter Ivor Kaplan, causing significant damage to those aware of it, as the mainstream media largely choose to ignore the story. But actually, it's far worse than you might already think when you dig down deeper into that. Check out the video recommendation here as your suggested next watch to find out all about that. And please do hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't already done so to help support the channel and ensure you don't miss new daily content, which is very much appreciated. And I will hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.